guys.
He was at Time at the time.
Okay. Actually, that was a very interesting thing, the Time Champion thing. What happened was they had a visionary leader at Time who was in charge of all the purchasing there. Can you guys hear me in the back? Am I okay? Am I projecting? Okay. And what they were trying to do was to say, let's have a less than adversarial relationship between the people that buy paper, right, and the people that use the paper. And so the thought was that by working together, they could save costs. And so we've designed and facilitated a session to do exactly that. And it was not easy because at the beginning, there's that adversarial role. The guy who was in charge of purchasing for Time, the online guy was like, yeah, and they didn't want to share the numbers, they didn't want to share all this. But after a certain period of time and enough creative exercises, it really became that win-win thing. And it was an extraordinary thing, and I thought a really important thing in terms of, quote, creative cost-cutting to get that level of cooperation. What I want to talk about today, I want to talk a little bit about some of the content in my book. By the way, there's, what's the title of my new book? Did you read the bio? Come on, guys. Did you read the bio? No, it was called, in the bio it says Sparking Idea Engines. That's incorrect. We've since changed the title. So it's now called Idea Stormers, How to Lead and Inspire Creative Breakthroughs. And this book is really a compilation of the last, God, I think it's 19 years now since I wrote the first book, of everything I know about ideation and innovation process. And I'm going to talk a little bit about stuff in there. I'm going to share with you some of the real-world stories, and then we're going to do some techniques together. Okay? So I think it'll be fun. My objective for you guys today is to accept that we all need to be facilitating leaders. Okay? That's my wish for one of the takeaways for you guys today. That you will acknowledge and accept and have some tools, actually, that being a facilitating leader is important. Now, what is that? What is a facilitating leader? It's somebody that helps themselves and their coworkers get breakthrough ideas and helps those ideas come to market successfully. And does anyone want to debate me about that? That that's important? I don't know. You know, what's the title of this workshop? This seminar that we're doing here? This 3 days. What is this called?
Leadership Forum.
Leadership Forum. What's the title of it specifically?
Leading in uncertain times.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we're leading in uncertain times, right? We're leading in uncertain times. What makes those times uncertain?
Everything.
Everything. What else? I mean, what makes it uncertain? What's that?
Unpredictable.
Unpredictable, but why are these uncertain times?
There's an economic crisis going on.
Economic crisis, why else? Political crisis, why else? Environmental crisis. Geez, it's a bummer, right?
War going on.
We got a war going on, all this stuff going on. On the positive side, what's the positive side of uncertainty? Is there a positive side?
It's exciting.
It's exciting. What else?
Positive outcome, and they can change.
What's that?
There could be a change in that.
Could be a change in that, right? Could be a change. What else?
Motivating.
What? Creativity, what?
Motivating.
Motivating, yeah. I mean, in the work that we do, which is really innovation consulting, the uncertainty is actually somewhat helpful because it allows us, it's an opening for us in some sense, to teach creative and innovation principles and practices, have people adopt them and have them use them successfully. And why is there an opening caused by the uncertainty? Is it self-evident, is obvious? Sort of, right? Yes, no? I mean, some people, uncertainty, they hunker down, right? They get even tighter, but others recognize that to get out of this uncertainty and to go into sort of a positive space, they have to be what? Creative, innovative, change acceptors, and all that kind of stuff, okay? So, as leaders, as managers, as consultants, all you guys, my bias is that it's important for all of us to have tools and techniques and processes that will enable the people we work with to come up with ideas. Because ideas are important in dealing with these uncertain times and succeeding and being innovative and all that kind of stuff. okay? Are you accepting my premise here?
Yes.
No? Okay. I don't know what I'm going to do if you say no, but some of you nodded, so we'll move on. Okay. A big part of the stuff that I'm going to share with you today is that these are empirically validated techniques and processes. This is not whoopee cushions. This is not, holding hands. This is bottom line stuff that we've been asked. We get these weird calls. Can you help us invent, a new iron? And you're going, what do I say?
Yeah.
Love to. And why do I say that? Because I want money, yes. My daughter is there. She just graduated from Smith. Say hi to Catherine. It was $53,000, $4,000 a year. Are you kidding me? Anyway. And she's worth it. Yeah. She was absolutely worth it.
And it
So,
causes you to be creative.
that causes you to be creative, actually, absolutely. So the stuff that I'm going to share with you is stuff coming from our real-world experience, getting these kind of calls to help companies be creative. And over the last 30 or so years that we've been doing this work, we found a couple of things. One, that the stuff actually works. The techniques that I'm going to share with you, they absolutely work. Number two is that some techniques and processes work better for some things than others. Does that surprise you? It shouldn't, right? I mean, certain techniques work great for OD work. Certain techniques work great for new product work. Some other techniques work better for positioning work, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to share with you a bunch of examples from all these different worlds. I talked with Steve before the session here, and I thought, well, I'll kind of punch it up a little bit on the OD-HR side, so I'll share some stuff with you. But also some of the concrete stuff I think is easier to remember and take away, so I'm going to do that too. You've all seen this thing up here. This says The Innovator's Quest, a mythic journey from imagination to innovation. I tried to think, well, how can I frame some of my talk in a creative way? And that was the challenge I gave myself. And let me set this up this way. One of the meta principles of creativity, right? The sort of overarching big deals here of creativity, it's a three-letter word. And that three-letter word is?
Fun.
Fun. No, but it is. It is fun, hopefully. It should be. It should be fun, absolutely. Good guess, though.
Yes.
Yes. No. You. Yeah. New. No. No. It's geez. It's and. How'd you get that?
I read your book.
Okay. Yeah, it's and. And let me tell a story about the power of and for me. Because we all know, I mean, creativity is you got this thing and that thing and you get a new thing, right? That by association, Kessler kind of stuff. I mean, that's simple. This plus this equals that. Okay, we got that. But I'll tell you a story. I got a call from a guy. Here was the email. It said, contact from Colombia, okay, as in the country. What are the chances of opening that email? Low, right? Yeah, I mean, it's got to be spam, right? But I opened it, and it was the president of Rosario University. Anybody heard of Rosario University? It's the Harvard of Colombia. It's in Bogota. It's the oldest university in South America, et cetera, et cetera. This guy had read my first book 15 years ago. He was a business professor there. And he said, wow, that's pretty good stuff. I'll have this guy down, and I'm now the president of this university, and I'll have Brian come down, and I'll represent him to all these Colombian companies and all this kind of stuff. Great, okay. So I actually go down there. I was asking about security, I'm going to be shot, and all, but it's changed there. If you've been there, it's really fantastic now. So I get there, and this schedule was unbelievable. I'd give 5 talks and see all these presidents of these companies. It was unbelievable. So the next morning, I was scheduled to give a talk to the Escoflores Association, whatever the Association of Flower Growers in Colombia. Okay, and don't laugh because it's a huge business there. I think 60 or 70% of their flowers are imported to the U.S. And so I'm going to give these talk to these guys about innovation. They're kind of freaking out, it turns out. I find out the night before. Why are they freaking out? They were freaking out because the exchange rates on the American dollar and the Colombian peso were not good. And so they were finding it very difficult to compete with other flower-growing countries around the world. So they were faced with layoffs and, a bad situation. So I had a planned, canned talk to give these guys, and I said, this may be rough, because they're freaking out. They're in uncertain times down there. And so that night I went to bed. Well, I had hoped to go to bed. I was actually up till 3 in the morning. And I said, how can I really help these guys? And sharing was something that's very important. And so what I did was, I thought about it, and it was really the and principle. And it was very simple. So flowers and what? Flowers and what?
Cocaine.
Cocaine. I think you got a market there. I think that's good. What I realized as I thought about their challenge was that they are, in a sense, in a commodity business, right? If they're not adding creativity to their flowers, it's all judged on price, right? And they were losing on the price situation. So they had to come up with a way to add an and to flowers, to decommoditize it, if you will, right? So, flowers and cocaine. Okay. Flowers and what?
Coffee.
What?
Coffee.
Coffee. Well, so flowers and coffee. What's an idea then?
A gift package.
A gift package with Starbucks coffee and flowers. Okay, we got an idea. We got one idea. We're cooking. Another idea. Flowers and what? How about flowers and religion? What could that be? What could that be?
Like wreaths.
What?
Wreaths.
Wreaths, certainly wreaths. You could focus on wreaths. That'd be one thing with maybe dead people, were you thinking, or no? Or whatever? Okay.
For any religious event.
And for any religious event, yeah. The idea I came up with was, well, why couldn't you have a birthday thing that has talking about the saint, right? And maybe a flower associated with that saint, and those are sold for people's birthdays to Catholics, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Flowers and what?
Cake.
Cake. Cake? Cake? Cake. What are you thinking?
Birthday? You said birthday.
Birthday, so you put the cake, what else?
Weddings.
Flowers and gift cards. Yeah, why aren't there flowers with gift cards? Why aren't they sold together? Flowers and sports, what do we got? That's an easy one, right? Well, Kentucky, every sporting event, there should be a flower thing, whatever that flower thing is, in the color of the team or the horse or whatever it is, right? And so we're off and running, right? So what I did that night was there's a technique called mindstorming where you set an idea goal for yourself of 20 ideas, right? Why do you do that? Why 20 ideas?
So you keep brainstorming.
Yeah, you keep brainstorming with yourself. How are the first 5?
Terrible.
Terrible. Cocaine.
Get your brain oxygenated.
Yeah, get your brain oxygenated. Actually, it's not bad. But the first 5 tend to be somewhat closer in, kind of top of mind. They could be great, but third 5, what happens then?
It really is less
15 through 20, you're kind of so pissed and don't want to do it anymore, you're tired. At that point, you can often loosen up, get more crazy ideas, and sometimes they're really, really good because you've loosened up a little bit. So that's a technique, just come up with 20. So I came up with 20 of these ideas for flowers and, right? And that's what I did the speech on, and these guys went crazy, right? Because they could see that I really had worked to help them with their business. So that's that sort of meta principle of and, right? Meta principle of creativity is just an and. You can't think of anything, well, hook it up with something else. It's about as simple and as basic as you can get, right? So what's the and here? The and here was I had all this stuff I wanted to tell you about creativity, but I wanted to present it in kind of a cool way. I thought it'd be cool. So this is what I came up with. Obviously, I think we're probably all familiar with the Joseph Campbell hero kind of stuff, right? And myth and all that kind of stuff, right? And I said, well, if you get down to it, and if you really think about it, to be an innovative, a successful innovator, or even unsuccessful innovator, it is somewhat heroic, right? Why do I say that? Why is it heroic?
It takes courage.
It takes courage. Why does it take courage?
You're breaking away from the norm.
You're breaking away from the norm, and the norm, there's heavy stuff in the norm, right? The norm can kill you. right? I mean, right?
It's
I mean,
the
my-
fear of looking like a fool.
It's fear of looking like there's fear of looking like a fool, fear of getting fired, what else?
Weird.
Fear of failing.
I was just going to say, another thing about the hero is that you're the one that comes to save the day.
You're the one that comes to save the day, and is that good or bad or what?
Well, I mean, that's good. Because
That's good, okay. Yeah, well, yeah, we're going to hopefully save the day. Yeah, we'll get these guys,
But
get these
you are
heroes here.
taking a risk.
You are taking a risk. Yeah, there's a risk with all this kind of work, right? And it's scary and you could fail. I mean, my father started a company at Time Inc., called Sammy. Well, he spent his entire adult life in a way trying to get that thing to work. He succeeded, but he was smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a day. He was afraid to be canceled and fired every day and all this kind of stuff. It was a huge success, but he could have died, he could have gotten killed very easily. In fact, I talked to one of the board members after my father passed away, and he said there was a vote at a critical time in the history of that company because they invested over $20 million in 1960 dollars. That was a lot of money before this thing started making money. And there was a critical vote of the board, and they were about to kill it. And it became this hugely profitable market research firm. But it was life and death in some sense, and also the stress associated with all that kind of stuff. It's rough. It's rough out there if you decide to be an innovator at times, right? But on the other side, what? Fun, right? Fun, cool, neat, inspiring. I'll just tell you a quick story about the fun part of this. I got a call from Con Ed. This was right after 9/11. They wanted a thing on innovation and creativity. I said, fine. But I said, I really want to go with your guys because I can't presume to know what they've been through. They did heroic things, you should probably know, to get the city of New York up and running after 9/11. And I said, I think it's kind of hollow of me to go in and then tell these guys about creativity without experiencing some of their world and what happened to them. So anyway, so they agreed, and I went on the trucks with them, and I got a Con Ed hard hat, and I'm walking through the bowels of Rock Center, with the steam pipes. Rock Center obviously wasn't hit, but we were going on repair calls, and the catacombs. I didn't know that Rockefeller Center was heated by steam. And there are all these steam pipes that are leaking, anyway. So I'm with these guys, and I'm with Mo. And Mo is a 25-year-old veteran of the company. So I said to Mo, and I talked to 11 other Con Ed employees as I went around the company. So I said, Mo, what's the thing you're most proud of here at Con Ed? You've been here 25 years. What's the thing you're most proud of? And he proceeded to tell me, I had an idea once. And I won't tell you what it was, but he said, I had an idea once, and they did it, and boy, that made me feel unbelievable. Here's a guy who's been business as usual for 25 years. I asked him this one question. The single thing he's most important about is that one idea he came up with. And what was the eureka moment for me is every single one of these guys I talked to, the 11 other guys I talked to, all of them said it was about an idea I came up with that they did. And that was a eureka watershed moment for me because I said, what's going on here? People they're self-actualizing. They feel good about it. They've done something that's never been done before. They've helped the company in a way that's never been helped. And isn't that extraordinary? And it wasn't that I committed my life at that point to helping people be more innovative. But that is my life's purpose in work, is to share the structure and process of creativity because I think it's just such a wonderful thing. Okay, so let's get heroic. This is, I took some of the stuff I want to share with you, put it in this hero model, and so here we go. This is from the Writer's Journey. Christopher Vogel, have any of you guys read that book? If you're in the arts, yes, Ed, in the arts. It's a wonderful book on sort of structuring screenplays based on the hero's model. And it's very specific and very good. So if you have anybody who's thinking of writing a screenplay, or if you are, it's a terrific, terrific book. Ed, do you want to mention that, or?
Yeah, no, it is.
It's just great.
No, it's based on Joseph Campbell's work.
Yes.
And in fact, Disney used the model. There was a 17-page memo that went out that said everything that Disney makes will be based on this monolith, this cycle of separation, initiation, return, which is the hero's journey of Campbell.
Yes.
And I've used it in my acting work for 30
Yeah.
years.
So it's great, and what really makes it work is more than just the 12 steps I'm going to share with you. It's the specificity around each of these steps, so you really kind of get it. So here we go. Let me just go through, there's the ordinary world. You start where you are, right? The hero starts at home, What happens then? Something happens. They call it the call to adventure, right? What's a call to adventure in mythic terms or in a story or screenplay?
Gandalf knocks on your front door.
There you go. Gandalf's knocking at the door. Absolutely, right? Okay. What happens next? Oh, I don't want to go. Don't call me. I'm going to refuse this call, right? But then, what happens? The mentor shows up, right? And maybe Gandalf all in one, right? And what's the mentor do for you? He's going to kind of get you going, and then you say, okay, I'm going to do this, and what happens? You sort of cross over, and now we're on the journey. Uh-oh. Now it's going to get rough, right? Okay, and get weird. And when that happens, you get allies. The hobbits get Gandalf or get the Gremlin. All this. You get your team together, right? And their enemies start marshaling and all this kind of stuff, right? And as you go through this process, you get closer to the sort of inmost cave, as they call it. In Steven Spielberg, Temple of Doom, right? The sort of, wow, now it's really hairy inside here, right? Okay? Ordeal. You got to get the prize, right? So you get the prize. I got it. Ooh, okay. I got the ring or this cup or whatever it is. Okay, we got that. Now we got to get back without getting killed, right? And this can be the roughest part of the whole journey, this getting back. That's when they really get pissed, right? The forces of evil really are after you then. And then there's a resurrection part of that because it's so difficult. And then finally, you get back home, you got the elixir, and so you're back home in your mythic journey. So that's the Vogler stuff, that's the Campbell stuff. We all intuitively know this because we've seen thousands and thousands of movies and stories that have this sort of hero's journey implicit in it. So what I've done is I've taken this and I've taken it to the world of sort of creativity. And so here we go. So who's the hero here? Here, meaning right here. Here, you guys. Who's the hero here?
We are.
You are. That's right. You guys are the heroes. You guys get to be the heroes. Why? Because you're helping do good stuff out in the world, right? So you guys get to be the heroes. Okay. Cool, right? I want to be the hero. No, you guys get to be the hero. Okay? So that would be you, right? There you go. That's you. All right? You had no idea, right? Okay.
Which way is the mirror, by the way?
I don't know. This is clip art. What do you okay. So now we go into the ordinary world, right? Does that look like the ordinary world?
Yeah.
In business? Yeah. The spreadsheet, right? That's our world. That's business as usual, right? There we go. Okay. Ugh. All right. Okay. So now we got the call to adventure. And I'm going to personalize this a bit, okay? So what's the call to adventure? This is my call to adventure. And I've got a lot of products here just because it's easy to concretize these. But these are the kind of calls we get. As I said, can you help us invent a new iron? Can you help us invent a new Oreo? These are all calls. Can you help us invent a new automotive hose? Are you kidding me? But those are the kind of calls we get. All right, and it's not just invention; it could be anything. All right, so those are the kind of calls we get. So that's our call to adventure. All right. So I immediately think what?
I'm not something.
Well, I think that, but I'm also what? I'm scared because I'll get this call from Pendaflex, or a Celti Corporation. If you guys know that, I'm sure you guys know that. Can you help us invent new envelopes and writing pads? We're going to spend 2 days in Las Vegas. Can you help us invent new envelopes and writing pads? What? Right? Make them yellow. I mean, what do you do with that, right? But those are the kind of calls we get. Okay? So that's the fear thing, and they say, oh, how am I going to deal with this? In this particular case, this was a call from Black & Decker, right? And I'm pulling this one out specifically because it's illustrative of a whole class of techniques, ideation processes, and techniques that I'm going to share with you. So I get the call from Black & Decker, and what do they say? do you think?
It's a new iron.
Can you help us invent a new iron? Right, you got it. Okay. And who's going to help them invent the new iron?
You.
Yeah, that would be me. I look kind of nuts there, but that's okay. That would be me. Then I'm going to help them do this, okay? And this gets to what's the quest I'm on and what's the question, which is a really critical part of this ideation and innovation process. And I think you probably know this as part of your consulting work. It's important to be solving the right problem, right? I should say that again. It's important to be solving the right problem. And part of in the work that you do, whether it's corporate or consulting, may actually be about defining the problem correctly, right? And that in itself is a creative act. Okay? So let me just talk a little bit about that. So if I went into this session and said, can you help us invent a new iron? What do you think?
Why?
Well, besides the why, the existential why. But the invent the new iron, if you frame the creative challenge that way, what's happening? It's a little narrow. The problem is I'm working with guys who have worked for Black & Decker for 20 or 30 years thinking about what? Irons. And so if I go in and say, let's invent a new iron, it's business as usual. I got to get them thinking differently, right? From the get-go. And so it was important in this case to frame the challenge more broadly. And so what's a broader way to frame that instead of invent a new iron? What? Can we invent new anti-wrinkle devices? Right? Very good. Okay? All right? So that was one way to frame it. I got them to actually be available to an even broader definition, which was what?
Personal grooming.
Yes, it was sort of they're in the device business, so I said garment care devices, but sort of around this whole word of sort of garment care. What's interesting is by taking this approach, what happened? There's a certain irony. I actually used that in the book, I forgot. But there is a certain irony about framing it this way. In that, by framing it broader, we got really cool stuff outside, but we also actually got some unbelievably cool new iron ideas. Right? And I'm convinced we could not have gotten to the iron ideas had we not framed it broader. Right? Yes? Okay. Thank you. All right. So this whole area of sort of framing and creativity and questioning is really a critical one in the work that we do. And there are 3 techniques that we do when we are faced with these kind of challenges. Problem redefinition, 20 questions, and questioning assumptions. So if you will note that, I'll put it over here actually. I'm going to show you guys later the problem redefinition technique. Okay? And this technique, we made a huge amount of money as consultants with this one technique. How's that for a tease? This is an unbelievably powerful technique, so I'm going to show you how to do that later. Okay? All right. So, what is this all about? This crossing the threshold, entering a new world. I mean, in the mythic terms, obviously, you're out on the quest, you go to a different place, conditions are different, you leave the Shire, whatever it is, okay? So, in my world of, quote, creativity consulting and ideation and innovation consulting, what did I do with the Black & Decker world? What did I do? Well, I left it behind, yes, and I framed it in a bigger world, right? Okay? And so a lot of the work we do, we have to start by getting people to enter a new world. And there are dozens, hundreds, infinite number of ways to do that, okay? And so, by the way, if you can create a new world, you could get really rich, right? Ralph Lauren and Polo, Hunger Games. What are some other worlds? I mean, certainly in the world of fiction, there are a tremendous number of worlds. But all these, Dr. Seuss, these are all different worlds, and worlds have their own rules and characters and all this kind of stuff, right? So I want to get people into a different world right away. in this consulting work we do. All right? So I want to, this crossing the threshold, entering a new world.